through to the end in time. Okie doke. So, when we stopped in 1739, England had declared war on Spain. As a result, in America, hostilities break out between Florida Spaniards and Georgia and South Carolina colonists. Also in 1739, three separate violent uprisings of black slaves occur in South Carolina, including the Stono Rebellion, the big, ugly, bloody one west of Charleston, which dozens of whites and whites are killed. Then we get to the end of that war, okay, in 1748, the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle brings an end to King George's War. The fortress of Louisbourg is given back to the French. This angered most New England colonists who lost loved ones in its capture. In 1751, the Currency Act, a new Currency Act, is passed by the English Parliament, banning the issuance of paper money by the New England colonies. Now, this particular act is going to begin a depression in the New England colonies that's not over until the end of the American Revolution. So there's a reason that the folks in New England are the hottest and are the maddest first when it comes to the American Revolution. 1754. The French and Indian War erupts as a result of disputes over land in the Ohio River Valley. In May, George Washington leads a small group of American colonists to victory over the French, then builds Fort Necessity in the Ohio Territory. In July, after being attacked by numerically superior French forces, Washington surrenders the fort and retreats. Okay. Now, the next part really just kind of goes over the big events of the war, so let's turn over to the next page. 1763, the French and Indian War, known in Europe as the 7 Years' War, ends with the Treaty of Paris, 1763. Under the treaty, France gives England all French territory east of the Mississippi, except New Orleans. The Spanish give up East and West Florida to the English in return for Cuba. The Proclamation of 1763, signed by George III of England, prohibits any English settlement west of the Appalachian Mountains and requires those already settled in those regions to return east in an attempt to ease tension with Native Americans. 1764, the Sugar Act is passed by the English Parliament to offset the war debt brought on by the French and Indian War. There's a new Currency Act that year also prohibits colonists from issuing legal tender or paper money. This act threatens to destabilize the entire colonial economy of both the industrial North and the agricultural South, thus uniting colonists against it. The British just can't stop doing things that are going to annoy the Americans. Down at the bottom of the page, in March, the Stamp Act is passed by the English Parliament, imposing the first direct tax on the American colonies to offset the high costs of British military organization in America. Thus, for the first time in a 150-year-old history of British colonies in America, Americans will pay a tax not to their local legislatures in America, but directly to England. Protest! Protest. We're going to protest now. Okay, also in March 1765, the Quartering Act requires colonists to house British troops and supply them with food. We don't like that. In May, Virginia, Patrick Henry presents 7 Virginia resolutions to the House of Burgesses, claiming that only the Virginia Assembly can legally tax Virginia residents, saying, if this be treason, make the most of it. Also, in May, the first medical school in America is founded in Philadelphia. July, the Sons of Liberty, an underground organization opposed to the Stamp Act, is formed in a number of colonial towns. October, the Stamp Act Congress convenes in New York City with representatives from 9 of the colonies. Congress prepares a resolution to be sent to King George III in the English Parliament. Petition requests the repeal of the Stamp Act and the Acts of 1764. The petition asserts that only colonial legislatures can tax colonial residents, that taxation without representation violates the colonists' basic rights. 1766, in January, the New York Assembly refused to comply with General Gage's request to enforce the Quartering Act. In March, King George III signs a bill repealing the Stamp Act. Yay! The same day it repealed the Stamp Act, the English Parliament passes the Declaratory Act, stating that the British government has total power to legislate any laws governing the American colonies in all cases whatsoever. Moving on to the next page. 1768, Samuel Adams of Massachusetts writes a circular letter opposing taxation without representation, calling for the colonists to unite in their actions against the British government. The letter is sent to assemblies throughout the colonies and also instructs them on the methods of Massachusetts General Court is using to oppose the Townshend Act. 1769, merchants of Philadelphia joined the boycott of British trade goods. In May, a set of resolutions written by George Mason is presented to George Washington to the Virginia House of Burgesses. Virginia resolves to oppose taxation without representation. British opposition to the circular letters. British plan to possibly send American agitators to England for trial. Holy cow. Hey, here we are. There will be blood tonight, okay? March 5th, 1770, the Boston Massacre occurs as a mob harasses British soldiers who then fire their muskets point blank into the crowd, killing 3 instantly, mortally wounding 2 others and injuring 6. After the incident, New York Governor of Massachusetts Thomas Hutchinson, at the insistence of Sam Adams, withdraws British troops out of Boston to the nearby Harbor Islands. In April, the Townsend Acts were repealed by the British. All duties on imports to the colonies are now eliminated except for tea. Also, the Quartering Act is not renewed. Now, things get quiet for a little time. We kind of have a cooling off period after the Boston Massacre. In May 10th of 1773, the Tea Act takes effect. Okay. However, it's not until December 16th. 8,000 Bostonians gathered to hear Sam Adams tell the royal governor Hutchinson's repeated his command to not allow ships out of the harbor until tea taxes are paid. That night, the Boston Tea Party occurs as the colonial activists disguise themselves as Mohawk Indians and board the ships and dump all 342 containers of tea into the harbor. 1774 March, English Parliament passes the series of coercive acts. Going on down to May 20th, they extend the next series of it, which includes the Massachusetts Redlining Act, the Massachusetts Government Act. They also give the Administration of Justice Act, and the Quebec Act greatly upsets American colonists by extending the southern boundary of Canada into the territories claimed by Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Virginia. In June of that year, a new version of the 1765 Quartering Act is enacted by the English Parliament to provide housing for British troops. September 5th to October 26th, the First Continental Congress meets in Philadelphia. 56 delegates representing every colony except Georgia. Attendants include Patrick Henry, George Washington, Samuel Adams, and John Hancock. September, Congress declared its opposition to coercive acts, saying that they are not to be obeyed. Also promotes the formation of local militia units. October 14th, a declaration resolves adopted to oppose the coercive acts. 1775, down in the middle, March 23rd, Patrick Henry delivers a speech against British rule, saying, "Give me liberty or give me death," in regards to voting. Okay, now we're getting close to the American Revolution. So we're in the last stages, and there's not lots about it, but be sure and highlight this. Be sure and highlight pretty much everything on the page that starts April 18th. April 18th, 1775, General Gage ordered 700 British soldiers to Concord to destroy the colonists' weapons. And you have the first shots that are fired at Lexington, then another battle that takes place at Concord. The Second Continental Congress convenes in Philadelphia. May 10th, 1775. July 1775, they adopt the Olive Branch Petition. January 76, Thomas Paine's Common Sense is published in Philadelphia. And then let's go on to the next page. July 4th, 1776. If you need me to tell you that, then you don't need to be taking the AP exam. No, okay. So July 4th, Congress formally endorses the Declaration of Independence. Okay. July 6, 1777, Burgoyne's troops stunned the Americans with the capture of Fort Ticonderoga on Lake Champlain. Then they moved further down into the borderlands between Vermont and New York, Battle of Bennington. Then in October of 1777, the Battle of Saratoga results the first major American victory of the Revolutionary War. General Horatio Gates and General Benedict Arnold defeat General Burgoyne, inflicting 600 British casualties. The American losses are 150. October 17th, Burgoyne and his entire army, 5,700 men, surrendered to the Americans led by General Gates. Big, great victory for us. October 24th, 1781, 7,000 British reinforcements under General Clinton arrived at Chesapeake Bay, but turned back on hearing the surrender at Yorktown. September 3rd, 1783, Treaty of Paris is signed by the United States and Great Britain. Congress will ratify it January 14th, 1784. In the Treaty of Paris, the U.S. is independent from Great Britain. We can dry our catch of codfish on the shores of the Grand Banks in Canada. France gets some small but profitable islands in the Caribbean that grow sugar. And the boundaries of the U.S. are Canada to the north, Mississippi River to the west, and Florida to the south. And that is our timeline for today. Any questions? And for those of you at home, you can shoot me an email if you have questions. Thank you.